battle for the soul of the All Progressives Congress leadership is yet to be properly resolved. Chairman of the Caretaker Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee and the Governor of Yobe State, Mai Mala Buni, has berated some members of his party, including the Minister of State for Niger Delta, Festus Keyamo, over their comments on the recent Supreme Court judgment in the Ondo governorship election, and describes their comments as both malicious and self-serving. Keyamo, senior advocate of Nigeria, in a leaked memo had said, while the ruling party won the legal battle in the Ondo state governorship election, at the Supreme Court has just weaponized all those that would be aggrieved by the APC congresses to proceed to court to challenge the competence of the Buni-led committee to organize the congresses and national convention. Also, two presidential aides, Senators Babafemi Ojudu and Ita Enang, said a cursory look at the minority judgment appeared to have swept the carpet of legality off the caretaker committee, rendering it illegal, null and void, and of no legal capacity to undertake any action on behalf of and in the name of the party. So this is a response from the chairman of this controversial caretaker committee of the APC, who also serves as governor of Yobe State. The debates are over, is this an executive position or not? But now he's saying, you know, this is self-serving comments coming from those who oppose him staying as, you know, the chairman of that committee.
You know, I said yesterday, let's be wary of ceasefires. It looked like the APC had the ceasefire. Everybody agreed, the governor stepped in. But things are not settled yet. And I think in his own best interest, Mai Mala Buni should just hold things down. People have a right to dissent in a political party. That's why it's a political party. People with different views, different interests and the likes. That was culminated in the World Congresses that a lot of people felt was shambolic. Anyway, some people say it was perfectly done, like Senator Adesha Ogolowe did say yesterday, but there were fracas at the World Congress. And you remember the case of Festus Keyamo going to the World Congress and saying, I didn't even know where my Congress held. So a lot of people are beginning to pick holes in the World Congress. Mai Mala Buni says it was perfect. There are different narratives. But when you have a different narrative, don't shut another person down. Because these are valid points. The APC cannot lie today that judgment between Eita Jegede and, you know, Arakure Akeredolu did not shake them. It did shake them. I have seen a lot of interpretations. Some people have even skewed the judgment. Somebody came out to say it's an affirmation of the caretaker committee and what is happening in the APC. The truth is, let us look at ourselves critically and look at, you know, the view and the slant and the former advisor to the APC, Babatunde Ogala, did give. And it is time for people to tell themselves the truth. Because you see, what this will open up for is a loophole of litigations. And we all saw those litigations that fractured the APC, a la the Oshomole debacle, while, you know, Oshomole was thrown out, that we didn't even know who was the party chairman at a point, while at some point he now moved to Senator Ajimobi, and Ajimobi passed on in that process before they brought in Mai Mala Buni to calm things down. But a lot of those, you know, dead bodies that they put in shallow graves, their legs are beginning to rise because the rains have come. What APC should do is to calm down and listen to dissenting voices. They might sound stupid to Mai Mala Buni, but those voices are valid. Nobody knows it all.
Dr. Bati.
Well, there is a constant tension in fighting differences in terms of opinion within political parties. And also in any political party where you have various tendencies and you have, you know, a collection of strange bedfellows. What we should insist upon is these political parties, for their own sake and for the health of the democratic process, to ensure internal democracy, you know, within their processes and in terms of their relationships. What often creates, you know, implosion with regard to political parties is some people, you know, acting superior to others, or some others insisting that their way is the only way. And as we have seen in the case of the All Progressives Congress, We have seen it also in the People's Democratic Party. And ahead of the 2019 general elections, we even saw it in some of the smaller parties, the AAN in particular, you will recall. But in this particular case, it looks like the leadership of the party has taken a decision. Maimal and Buni are now responding to persons who objected to his remaining in office as chairman of the caretaker committee and being the person to conduct the congresses. He probably does not need to, give this kind of response because this was a whole debate that was carried on about a week or so ago, and this is like bringing it back. His priority, now that he has been given, that opportunity to organize the convention, should be to seek reconciliation, to provide the necessary leadership to douse the tension within the party. Coming forward and identifying people and naming names, will only compel those persons that he probably sees as adversaries to be more adversarial towards him. By the way, you refer to Festus Keyamo as Minister of State for Niger Delta. He's Minister of State for Labor. Yes, I think we need to correct that. So now here you have Festus Keyamo, Senator Itanian, you have BK Ogala, who are also major stakes, and Babafemi Ojudu, who are also major stakeholders within the party, saying that the minority ruling by the 3 justices of the Supreme Court, is something that should be paid attention to. Well, it's a no-brainer. The value of the minority judgment, I guess, as pointed out by Akpanodo, is academic. Because if it is 4-3, no matter how close it is, no matter what the issues are, the majority decision as delivered by Justice Emmanuel Agim, carries the day. However, are there lessons that the party can learn? Are there big takeaways for the party from the minority decision? If they do not pay attention to some of the points raised in that minority judgment by Justice Mary Odili, maybe the party could find itself in, a worse situation in the future in other cases. If that is the big issue that, those who are opposed to Buni's continued stay in office are bringing up, then, of course, they should be listened to. The points that they are making should be tabled for the best interest of the party itself.
Okay, well said. Well, let's take another story here in Nigeria. As the federal government says, the ban on operations of the micro-blogging platform Twitter will soon be lifted. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, spoke to reporters after the Federal Executive Council meeting yesterday. He said negotiations with the micro-blogging site have been largely successful and that most of the conditions given to the platform have been accepted. The minister said that there are pending areas. This include the setting up of a Twitter office and having a Twitter staff of management cadre that will serve as the country's representative. Well, it seems like reasoning is prevailing. There are still 3 unresolved areas. One of it is setting up that office. There's also been a response from Twitter. Twitter says, we have reached that amicable position. Reason
has not prevailed. What has prevailed has been, it's my way that has prevailed. After a lot of businesses have been lost on Twitter, after massive revenue has been lost, you will ask, couldn't they have started these conversations before banning the network? After on the international scene, Nigeria looks terrible. After envoys of other nations are pointing at freedom of speech, and now you say you want to open in 2 weeks. The fact is a lot of people have gone through the cycle of using VPN. They're even tired, they're off Twitter. They've even forgotten about it. So for somebody like me, if you open it back, what difference does it make? And you allow Coup go ahead. You've not had these same conversations with Coup, and you are saying you want to, make these people create jobs for the economy. But Coup launched, and you didn't have this conversation with Coup, did you?
Well, the Coup has an office in Abuja, we're told.
Okay, even and they're paying taxes already.
And even the president is a major ambassador. As ambassador. But let this point be made. I hope that at some point, someone is going to calculate the cost of that Twitter ban for more than 65 days now, almost 30 days. So this is a negotiation that has gone on for so long. So it's good news for many who have been very anxious about the nature and content of that negotiation that we've been given the feedback. What the Minister of Information has told us is that the conversation will be concluded. Other gray areas, existing gray areas will be resolved within a matter of weeks. We hope that, yes, that will be the case and that this will not again be drawn out. Considering the implications of the Twitter ban for, human rights, the right to access information, which has been a major point of criticism from the international community. And also in terms of the effect. The other day, I talked about the mental health effect, for Nigerians, particularly young Nigerians, who spend the better part of their time on social media. And also for businesses. Many businesses rely on social media platforms to be able to do business. So what is the cost? Both in terms of losses for businesses, both and in terms of, the mental health, social interaction effect, at both individual and group levels. Now, those gray areas that have to be resolved, Twitter doesn't sound like it's objecting to it. So if they set up the office, if they have a country representative, which are some of the things they are asking for, and if they have a relationship with FIRS and they pay tax to the Nigerian government, well, there should be a level playing field. The same should be done perhaps for other social media platforms that are operating in Nigeria. But I guess in the long run, when this is resolved, many of the Nigerians who are relying on virtual private networks to access Twitter will be relieved because I guess it's been a lot of hardship in terms of access to information.
Well said. Well, that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rotus Odiri, Michael Wilson, Erin Akredela, and myself to give you updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, as well as sporting activities from across the globe. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back to the morning show right here on the RISE News Channel. Rotus, over to you, my friend. How are you, Rotus? Good morning.
I'm fine. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Adesoa. Good morning to all our viewers. Yeah. African Business Update begins with Shell Nigeria Petroleum Development Company agreeing finally after about 3 decades of the ongoing legal dispute back and forth, which they've lost multiple times with the Ogoni people, the Ejam Ebubu community in Rivers State, agreed to settle to the tune of $110 million. Shell apparently, according to the legal representative for the Rivers community that's been affected by this oil spill, informed the media that Shell did actually reach out to a high court in Abuja and inform them of the decision to settle. So, I mean, this has been dragged on for so long. They lost this case back in 2010, didn't agree to pay, took it all the way to the Supreme Court. This was revisited in 2017 and 2019. But interesting, though, this is coming, 2-3 weeks after Shell has decided to divest from its onshore and shallow water assets and just move in deep water. Remember, Mr. Van Buren, the CEO, said that cases like this, plus vandalism, plus other issues are, quotes, headache to the company. So this kind of falls in line with them deciding to just settle all cases and then just move off into deep water, focus on renewables and so on and so forth. To President Buhari, he was represented by Boss Mustafa, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, in Uyo in Akwa Ibom, saying that Nigeria's share of foreign direct investments between 2015 and 2019 has, according to him, been unacceptable. I think we only got about $3 billion out of about $75 billion that came into the region within that time. So this was at a retreat. He made those comments at a retreat put together by NATI, the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, and spoke to the new board in charge, saying that he's charging them to be able to implement the necessary reforms that will bring investments into foreign direct investment into the country. But it must be said, that the president is, of course, investing in his health in another country as we speak. He was represented by Boss Mustafa. There's insecurity issues in the nation. There's a whole lot of other issues that are affecting foreign direct investment. Doctor was just talking about Twitter a few minutes ago before we went to break. So all those touch points are part of why FDI has dried up. But again, they're charging NATI to get that up there. The Debt Management Office has put out a letter lashing out at the Punch newspaper because of how they addressed what we talked about yesterday with respect to when we talked about this yesterday, anyone can go on YouTube and check the clip. We talked about Nigeria being highly indebted to the International Development Association. We have that chart up. If you can put that chart again, where India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Nigeria, a number of countries. How we reported this story yesterday was that Nigeria is just one of the most indebted nations to the IDA based on their financials that they released. But the Punch said that Nigeria was categorized as a high-risk nation in terms of country risk for debts, and that's not how it was put out. So I guess the Debt Management Office, at the time when Nigeria is about to go to the Eurobond markets to go and tap the capital markets to get in proceeds from a Eurobond, you don't want to be having media outlets, or at least a newspaper, saying that you are categorized as a high-risk nation in terms of lending. So I guess it was necessary for the Debt Management Office to put out that notification and clear the air. I won't touch too much on this. Doctor already did due diligence on this. Lai Mohammed, Minister of Cultural Information, saying that Twitter, the ban will be lifted soon. I don't know when soon is. Twitter says that they will open an office here, although they say it can't happen until about early or middle of 2022. The doctor already touched on that. And then finally, it looks like tolls are going to be coming back to dual carriageways, to the roads in Nigeria. Minister Fashola made this known at the Federal Executive Council meeting that just ended yesterday, virtual meeting with the media, saying that tolls will be reintroduced. Only about 5,000 roads, 5,000 kilometers of roads are being tolled currently out of a possible 35,000. That's only 14%. It says vehicles will pay between 200 to 500 naira depending on their make and model. However, military vehicles and some state vehicles will be exempt from that. The tolls will be electronically managed, kind of like how it says at the Lekki toll with the easy tag. The fees are going to be used to construct more roads and also to maintain current roads, and also going to be used as a return on investment for private entities that the roads are concessioned to. Impact of that, of course, it's a tax, and they need to raise revenue in order to maintain infrastructure. You can expect that public transportation will pass on those costs to end users, but it's a necessary revenue initiative for the government, and it's something they said. Minister Fashola said that discussions were with the private sector, public sector, and so we can expect tolls to return, and that's our African Business Update.
It's about the planned return of the tolling points on our roads. And the Minister of Works has been very consistent in this regard. But, the point that has also been made is that the tolling will not start until the roads are motorable and they've been completed. And I think that is important, because I thought I heard the Minister saying, the toll gates are not going to return tomorrow. So that clarification is very important. And then single carriageway roads would not be tolled. And we are also told that persons who live within the vicinity of these proposed toll gates would be given discounts for regular movement, across those toll gates. And then, of course, audit and accountability will be guaranteed. All of that is in order. We've been through this road before. However, the question to ask, what the ordinary Nigerian will be concerned about, is policy inconsistency. 2003, the Obasanjo government decided to remove all the toll gates, right? The excuse then was abuse for many reasons by those to whom those toll gates have been concessioned. I hope that going forward, there will be a process in place in terms of the consultations that has taken place between the federal government and the various stakeholders to ensure, one, that these toll gates, when they are handed over to those who will manage them, will not be for the purpose of political patronage. Because part of the concern in 2003 was that toll gates had become centers of patronage without adequate returns not being made to government. Maybe the electronic collection of tolls, cash will be collected in some instances until all of that is upgraded. Maybe that will help to solve the problem, and that there will be no issues about ethnicity, about religion. So in introducing the toll gates, there should be absolute transparency. Again, in terms of costs, I mean, it was a historic site in those days when those toll gates were demolished, because some of them were really very beautiful edifices and centers of commercial activity as you moved on the highways. Now, Nigeria is going to spend money again to rebuild those toll gates. So this is the thing about the culture of waste that seems to be, institutionalized in our country.
I mean, for me, it's the corruption that might happen. And great point you raised, Dr. Bati. I was privy to somebody that owned the toll gate way back in the 2000s. It was high-level lobbying. It was corruption at its finest. People had to pay people to share concessions on a toll gate. If you are telling me that with the history we have with concessions in this country, we also what happened to Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. It was what concessioned. And I say we're going back to that part of toll gate. All you just need to do is, if you can assure Nigerians that corruption will not come up. But as long as there's human interaction, I am not confident about that. And secondly, please, we need to build more roads in Nigeria. It's appalling. For a landmass 923,000 square kilometers, we just have about 35,000 kilometers of federal roads. It is appalling. Cumulatively, we have less than 200,000 square kilometers of roads for a 923,000 square kilometers of land. At least we need to build another 400,000 to 500,000 square kilometers of road to be able to link this country properly. And we should do it now.
Well, tolling the road is definitely a hot button issue, but it's not new to the Minister of Works, who defied all resistance to toll the roads in Lagos when he was governor. But I'm just worried about the ripple effect on the road users. Like you said, this cost is going to be pushed back somehow to the ordinary Nigerians. So let's see how it goes.
All right, great point, Adesu. Great point, Dr. Bati. Moving on to business update, we'll get Michael Wilson. Thank you, Rotus. Michael Jones from London, I should say. Michael, good morning.
Yes, good morning. So US inflation, then, that's the big one, looking at global markets. Not as high as people had feared it might be. It is still high, but it's not on the boil. There are certain softening elements in that. The base effects are relatively low. However, one Fed official, this time it's Mary Daly, who's San Francisco federal president, has said that it's time for tapering to start probably towards the end of the year. So it's all fairly mixed. So therefore, Asia-Pacific markets mostly declined, didn't have a great deal to work on. China subdued, Hong Kong edged slightly lower. And Chinese electrical vehicle maker Li Auto dipped as much as, I think it's about 1.8% below their offering price. Nikkei in flatline, basically. PPI rather, month on month and year on year in Japan, fairly flat. So the longed for inflation is still a long, long way away. I think markets are going to continue to look at the COVID. World Health Organization is saying that global cases could pass 300 million by early next year if the pandemic continues in the way it's going at the moment. Now let's get specific. China, Tesla rival NIO narrows the losses. Revenue up 127%. It delivered nearly 22,000 vehicles in the second quarter within its range and so on. Obviously, NIO and the other electrical car makers are facing headwinds because of the chip shortages, and also in China, for example, a resurgence of the pandemic could force productivity down. Now, we know that that China's tech giants have generated billions of pounds for investors. We know that a lot of investors have been worried about where the regulatory axe is going to fall in the near future. I've got a bit of colour for you, basically. This is a story which will develop, but it's about small businesses actually saying, okay, it's fine for the big tech giants to make all this money or not, as the case may be, but to get all the headlines, actually, whilst to partner with the big ones gives us better opportunities, the kind of costs involved are often rather prohibitive. Whether this is small businesses suddenly faced with a massive increase of business because of their tie-up with big tech food delivery services, for example, and can't cope, well, who knows? But that's a bit of colour within the general big tech story that seems to come out of China every day. Let me recap the United States for you then. And inflation was hot, but not that hot. Private sector reports double-digit increases as far as some kind of things are concerned. what actually was not looked at in the overall figures that we saw yesterday, but overnight this has now come out, is that rent payments are actually getting higher and higher and higher in the United States. That is going to add to price pressures. We're going to see weekly jobless claims again today. Be talking about that later in the day with Reuters. They're expected to fall to 375,000 from 385,000. So basically, all the American markets once again in record territory because the inflation figures were not as bad as some people thought they were going to be. Wait to see on that. The US has called on OPEC Plus to boost oil production. Very unsurprisingly, this has fallen on completely deaf ears. Apparently, US petrol prices have soared by about 50% year on year. Clearly, people are hitting the roads again. You know, it's a big country. I needn't tell you about that. And therefore, people tend to take to their cars and so on. President Biden calling on OPEC. I think it's more for the domestic voters, really. But there we are. I don't think OPEC is going to take the slightest bit of notice at that. They only will when demand is threatened. But that's a long way off. And if you remember, I brought you the fact that OPEC had upped its production by 400,000 barrels a day on a monthly basis until 2022. The cryptocurrency heisters have started to show a bit of a sense of humour, at least, and are returning a bit of the money. The blockchain platform Poly Network, which was hit by the heisters, sent out an appeal on Twitter saying, "Can we work out a solution?" So the heisters have been sending little bits back here and there. $3.5 million worth of Ethereum, $256 million worth of Binance Smart Chain, and $1 million worth of Polygon. So a total of about 269 million has been returned. Here's a good one. Fatties of the world unite. Weight Watchers shares dive. People put their diets on hold. Weight Watchers, this is one of those promoted by Oprah Winfrey, of course. 4.9 million subscribers at the end of June, down from 5 million last year. Reason is, oh dear, people have been going out and they've been eating. They don't care about diets anymore. They're happy to get out of the lockdown of their homes. Speaking about diets, here, London-based Deliveroo found that their orders have actually doubled as a result of lockdown habits, which are keeping going. People are still ordering from home. First set of results from the company since it floated on the stock market in March. Initially 390 pence a share. Price fell very, very sharply. Narrowed pre-tax losses to 104 million as we speak. So UK then, finally, UK GDP grows by 4.8%. That's the economy in the second quarter. It's what economists had been expecting. Not the Bank of England was slightly more optimistic than that. Why do we care about these kind of things? A bit of a rear view mirror taste to GDP figures and so on. Well, it's the foundations for where monetary policy is going to be set for the rest of the year. Excuse me. As far as commodities are concerned, oil steady. Slipping a bit on that White House ask from OPEC Plus, but soon came back as people realised it couldn't be taken seriously. And gold prices, well, as the dollar starts to gain momentum, more talk about tapering, dollar gets more expensive, and therefore it's more expensive to buy gold and more expensive to keep it too. So it's expected the gold price will fall in the near future. That is the global view. Good morning.
Michael, the prices went up. Inflation numbers were by the roof. And that's why you kept on saying it was not as much as we expected. I'm like, Michael, we saw the data yesterday. And that was what led President Joe Biden, when he was speaking, to be very careful about the potentials of raising taxes, because his stimulus bill alone, a lot of people are now saying will only ratchet up those inflation numbers. In fact, some Republicans are saying that, yeah, he wants a bipartisan deal, the 3.5 trillion, but we might not give him 3.5 trillion because it will just make inflation snowball. And in the end, people will have to pay back and claw back this cost. Take, for instance, the price of meat, month on month, about over 2.5%. The price of gasoline, the price of used cars, Michael, year on year was 41% increase. These numbers are not transitory. Inflation is boiling, and it's time for us to look at ourselves in the face and tell ourselves the truth. Your views, Michael?
I don't think inflation is boiling, with respect to your views. I think what it's doing is it's going up. Everybody expected that. The bottom line about those figures, if you drill down them, as I said yesterday, the base effect, which is the core inflation, is actually not as high as people thought. Yes, I know that second-hand car prices are rising. We know that petrol costs are rising. But second-hand car prices are rising because of a specific lack of semiconductor activity. I think that will probably be solved by the end of the year. I'm not dissing the fact that people should believe in inflation, absolutely, but it is not boiling. If it were boiling, then there'd be many more drastic measures at the moment, and minds better than ours would be saying, right, let's get out of equities because we're worried about interest rates rising. Of course they're going to rise, but the point about these inflation figures is that they weren't as hot as people as expected them to be. Inflation is high, but it's not on the boil. That's the important thing. Once it gets to that kind of thing, once the pressure really starts to build up, then I think we're going to be able to see some movement. At the moment, all we've got is one Fed chairman, in San Francisco Fed chairman, saying that there may be tapering towards the end of the year. That's the most dissenting voice we've had so far as the Fed's concerned. As far as the Bank of England's concerned, similar kind of voice. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying that the sort of panic indications that you're talking about are not happening right now.
Well, the Q2 GDP report on the UK economy, 4.8% growth, slightly less than the 5% that the Bank of England was predicting. What are the implications in terms of market sentiment, in terms also of the fortunes of the pound sterling? And what are the kind of next steps that we're likely to see now that the follow scheme is likely to go and other sectors of the economy are opening up? That's one. You say the cryptocurrency drama of the last 24 hours shows a sense of humor. Well, the hacker is saying that, well, he doesn't need the money, but he's returned just about half of it. But he made a statement about, look, we should focus more on what lessons we can learn from what he has done. What are the possible lessons that we can learn? Is it about the risks involved in investing in cryptocurrencies? If someone can just hack into the Buni network and take as much as $600 million.
In answer to your second question, exactly. In answer to your first question, sterling has strengthened as a result of this. As I said, most of these things, it was right in line with what economists expected, slightly less. The GDP figure slightly less than the Bank of England had expected. So, in other words, monetary policy will be saying this to itself. I mean, if we were both sitting there, we'd be saying to each other, okay, so we don't need to raise interest rates right now, but there's no question that the economy is growing. It will happen in the future. I don't think the markets need to be told that. Hence the strengthening of sterling straight after these figures this morning, and also after figures yesterday coming on to the kind of estimates that they were thinking about, and they've turned out to be absolutely true. It's a backward-looking GDP figure. They always are, but forward-looking monetary policy, I suspect a slight hardening in sterling.
Okay, you think the U.S. will succeed in terms of the pressure it's trying to put on OPEC Plus? Because it's not only in the United States that, fuel prices are going up. How far can the U.S. go?
We were talking earlier about a sense of humour. I have to say, I giggled when I saw that yesterday, as if OPEC are going to take any notice of Joe Biden saying, oh, and by the way, would you mind upping oil production? I don't think so. I think that OPEC will be saying, but we said we would. We've done all this. That's what the meeting was about. We said we'd increase production by 400,000 barrels a day on a monthly basis until 2022. They're not going to suddenly change direction because Joe Biden's worried about a few domestic voters and the fact that petrol prices are going up at the pumps. Petrol price at the pumps far more complicated than just the wholesale price of oil. That's what if I were OPEC, that's what I'd be saying. I would only worry, and I keep saying this, I'd only worry if I were OPEC if the price got so high that demand started to fall off. Then I'd think again. It is only a commodity.
Well, Michael, it is true that we're not seeing panic as regards the latest figures for the inflation in the U.S. But given that the target was 2%, and we've seen 2 months in a row of year-on-year 5.4% increase, it's true that you need a little bit of inflation to oil the economy. But what does this say about the U.S. economy at the moment?
Well, it says that the U.S. economy is growing. It's growing very nicely. Thank you very much indeed. But there are all sorts of complications, and I brought them to your notice at the end of last week. Number one, and I think this is really important, is that there are 1 million unclaimed vacancies in the United States. With unemployment being where it is right now, why are people not going back to work? They're not going back to work because A, they're on furlough, B, the government's not addressing childcare policies. Are you going to leave your children at home and suddenly take a job as a hamburger flipper when you're getting money from the government? I don't think you are. And thirdly, are you convinced, are you absolutely convinced that your employer is protecting you from the variants of the virus, which you're seeing in the news every day? I suspect you may have a lot of doubt about that. That's what's keeping people away from work, and that's what will pull the US economy back. It'll pull every economy back in the world where they have this system of money for doing nothing.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. See you again tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, we'll go straight to this one. We talk about COVID. That's what?
Yes, Rufai. It's time to look at those latest statistics. According to the Johns Hopkins University, they have the latest global infections over 204 million, and of course, latest global deaths over 4.3 million, and vaccines. Over 4.5 billion doses have now been administered. And although there are several effective vaccines available for COVID-19, deaths and cases are on the rise. And this is a source of worry for the WHO. Just as Michael said moments ago, the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, says global COVID-19 cases could surpass 300 million in early 2022 if they continue at the current trajectory. Whether we reach 300 million and how fast we get there, he says it depends on all of us. Well, here in Nigeria, in the last 24 hours, the country recorded a highest daily infections in 6 months amid spread of the highly transmissible Delta variant. 790 infections and 1 death from Nigeria. But look at those figures from Lagos, 574 for the day, quite worrisome. Still in Nigeria, a bit of confusion yesterday. A report suggesting that some 109 prospective corps members tested positive for the virus at various orientation camps across the country. During the scheme's compulsory COVID-19 test was quickly debunked in a statement by the NYS's Director of Press and Public Relations, describing the report as misleading while stressing the difference between a corps member and a prospective corps member. However, commenting on the situation, Minister of Information Lai Mohammed says the cases could actually be more at the orientation camps. He's attributing the consistent testing and non-compliance to non-pharmaceutical interventions as factors responsible for the rising cases of infections across the NYC camps. So who do we go with, the minister or the director of the NYC for information? There you have that about Nigeria. Quickly away to China, where the drug regulator approved the country's first mixed vaccine trial amid concerns about the efficacy of domestically produced jabs in the country. The trial would test the efficacy of combining an inactivated vaccine made by China's Sinovac with a DNA-based one developed by a U.S. pharmaceutical company. 5 of the 7 vaccines approved in China are 2-shot inactivated vaccines. A footnote here. The World Health Organization has said there's still not enough data to say whether using 2 different vaccines together is safe or can boost immunity. And as part of enormous global trial to find effective treatments for COVID-19, the World Health Organization is testing 3 additional drugs. The trial, which involves researchers at more than 600 hospitals in 52 countries, will evaluate whether the drugs that have already been approved for other uses, 1 for malaria, 1 for cancer, and 1 for autoimmune diseases, can reduce the risk of death in patients who are hospitalized with COVID-19. And finally, in the U.S., the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is urging all pregnant women to get COVID-19 vaccines as hospitals in hotspots around the U.S. see disturbing numbers of unvaccinated mothers to be seriously ill with the virus. Expectant women run a higher risk of severe illness and pregnancy complications from the coronavirus, according to the CDC, and this includes perhaps miscarriages and stillbirths. The updated guidance coming from the CDC is after an analysis of a new study on 2,500 women showed no increased risk of miscarriage for those who received at least one jab of the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine before 20 weeks of pregnancy.
I mean, so for me, I'm very iffy about the fact that China is coming out to say, I want to do mixed vaccine trials. You know why I'm iffy? Because the peer review out of China is always suspect. If you remember when they churned out there are two vaccines, a lot of people complained about the peer review. And they said, no, it was very potent. Until I think they sent the vaccine to Brazil, and Brazil spotted the 70% efficacy rate and the 60% efficacy rate. So if China is having a mixed trial, I'm iffy about the peer review, because peer review is everything in science, and that's what I've always insisted on when we talk about this mix and matching of vaccines. Because you see, the formulation of vaccines are different. Adenovirus vaccines, they're attenuated form of the virus. So you sort of like immobilize the virus. You put the virus in sort of like an adiabatic process so that it cannot hurt people, but it can go into your body and tell your immune system that there's a virus like that. Then there are the designer ones, the mRNA ones, which is something entirely different. So mix and matching it, and the World Health Organization has come out straight on it. And I'm very iffy about that. Secondly, if the minister is saying something and the people out of NYC are saying another thing about cases on camp, it shows the fact that we can't even coordinate efforts. And it shows that this fight against COVID-19, lack of coordination of efforts might ruin us. As at this point in time, what are we doing as regards those core members? The cases are high, we hear. Have we gone in there to vaccinate them? What measures can we take? And when people say social distancing, I mean, we all served in NYC. You can never have social distancing when many people are cramped in a room. You can never have non-pharmaceutical methods properly employed when there's no even water to wash your hands. We all know the state of the toilet. I don't want to spoil your morning, I'm sorry, if you're having breakfast. We all know the state of the toilet and the hygiene in every NYC camp. Has that been wrapped up? So let's not deceive ourselves. Those cases are rising. We should look for solutions to the problem. Some people are saying vaccinate the people. Yeah, we should look for solutions. Apart from vaccination, other things should be put in place. Thirdly, I just want to know, Cuba has brought out the Sobrano vaccine. The world needs more vaccine. Is there any possibility that Cuba can ramp up production so that at least people can get the Cuban vaccine to go around? Because if the big ones, the big vaccine producers, the Pfizer, the Modernas of this world are oversubscribed already, maybe Cuba might be another one as we start to wait for more vaccines. And since we've not had other big pharmaceutical companies, I remember this French pharmaceutical company, Sanofi, was working on some vaccine. I don't know how they've got as regards their work on the vaccine. So maybe Cuba, if Cuba ramps up production, something good might come out. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
On China, what China is doing is what is called mix and match. And it's not only China that is involved in this. In parts of Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, there have been attempts to mix and match the vaccines. And the research, according to the Chinese company Sinopharm and its US partner, Inovio, is that they've discovered that when you mix the vaccines, the level of immunity is further enhanced. There has been a similar report also from Canada. Canada is also considering it. And even in the United Kingdom, there's been research about how, in fact, if you add another vaccine for booster purposes, then the immune system will be further strengthened. There are at least a number of countries in Europe, about 16 of them, that are already considering mix and match. However, the WHO position is that, look, not enough is known about the effect of mix and match, and hence the WHO advised against it. And you'll recall that this was one of the major submissions by the Nigerian authorities when we were told about the rollout of the second phase of vaccination. Yes. It was made very clear by Dr. Faisal Shuaib that in line with WHO guidelines, Nigeria is not going to mix and match vaccines. And that persons who have taken the AstraZeneca should wait when the next batch of AstraZeneca vaccines arrive. So if you take AstraZeneca, you stay with it. If you take Moderna, you stay with it. And that there is also the batch of Johnson & Johnson, 179,000 vaccine doses of it that Nigeria has already taken delivery of through AfriXim and the African Union. So that is the WHO position. However, there's a lot more that we keep knowing about this coronavirus and how it behaves. You know that before now, there was a lot of skepticism about whether pregnant women can take the vaccine or not. Yes. And now we have the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention telling us that, yes, pregnant women in the United States can, in fact, take the three vaccines that have received emergency authorization, namely Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. And this has become necessary because it's been observed that just about 2.3% of women, pregnant women in the United States, have taken the vaccine. So this is, again, a way of, ramping up, immunization. And it is important that it is based on research. So maybe this will encourage women, because the fear is that pregnant women who are not vaccinated, they face the risk of severe illness should they fall ill. And that, in fact, if they put to bed, they could also be seriously affected. Who knows what else will be told tomorrow as a result of science making new discoveries. And that's why I said, look, it's like we're on a journey, because new discoveries are being made every day, and we're hoping that the scientists will remain ahead of the threat that is posed, particularly by the Delta variant. As for National Youth Service Corps camps in Nigeria, there are many who had argued that, in fact, the camps should be suspended because of the conditions that we have, in those camps. Yes, the NYSC authorities would naturally not want to cause panic, but the Minister of Information is giving us the details, namely that as a result of testing, improved testing, the ramping up of testing in the NYSC camps, it's been discovered that more people, have been infected. That's a no-brainer, right? Because if you have people in a concentrated place and you test and test, the numbers will go up. I would have even loved to see the government do more testing within the general community. And of course, the numbers will also go up, even if at no time can you have the exact rate of positivity because of the way, these things go. And then, of course, you made the point about people not observing non-pharmaceutical measures. Well, that's not just for people in the camps, in the NYSC camps. It's for everybody. Nigerians are at a stage now where they even believe that, COVID-19 has disappeared. That is the attitude. Either it's out of fatigue or it's out of skepticism. That is the biggest threat that the Nigerian authorities face. However, even if we do the test, it's important to get the vaccine doses available. Now in Nigeria, we're likely to have the AstraZeneca, we have the Moderna, and then we're told that the government has paid for about 39 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson. And I was excited saying, oh, this is the first time we are having information that the Nigerian government, in fact, used money to buy, and that we're not relying solely on donations. We may have been supported by AfriXim Bank, but it's important to know that before the end of the year, we'll get up to about 39 million doses. What will remain is to put infrastructure in place beyond the training that we have been told of over 411,000 health workers across the country. Maybe if we have such a program in place, we will not be faced with a situation whereby we complete one phase in the face of a third wave, and then we wait for a whole month before we begin another rollout. But everybody should just be cautious. The third wave is here. The numbers are going up, but I see that many Nigerians don't wear masks. We don't observe social distancing. Yesterday, although I had my mask, Somebody saw me for a moment when I didn't have the mask. He said, you don't have your mask. He gave me a mask. And that is the kind of message that has been pushed by the government, that we should all look out for one another. Those who have been vaccinated, encourage other people to get vaccinated. If you see somebody who does not have mask, if you have extra, give the person so that we can all protect one another. No one is safe. Oh, you know it. That has become the quote.
I just wanted to ask, when the person saw you without mask, were you jolloffing there?
Today he managed not to say the word jollof.
You like jollof rice. You know, jollof rice is a national symbol.
Yes. And Senegal best jollof rice better than Nigerian jollof rice.
No, Nigerian jollof is better.
Our minister said it.
You know, when I went to Ghana, I deliberately asked for Ghanaian jollof, but I prefer the Nigerian jollof.
Yes.